The white nightgown felt like a burial shroud against Rosemarie's skin. She stood outside the master bedroom door, her hands trembling so violently that the wooden cross her mother had carved, her only inheritance before Mama was sold away, slipped from her fingers and clattered against the mahogany floor. Behind that door waited Captain William Ashford, war hero, gentleman planter, expecting his bride. But Lady Charlotte Ashford, pale and shaking in her corset and petticoats, had just whispered 6 words that shattered Rosemarie's world. "You are my wedding gift to him." It was tradition, Charlotte had explained through tears, a Caribbean tradition. The bride proves her generosity by gifting her husband a virgin slave on their wedding night. Rosemarie was 19 years old, had never been touched by any man, and in 60 seconds, Lady Charlotte would open that door and offer her up like a lamb for slaughter. And if Rosemarie refused, little Jacob, her 12-year-old brother, her only family left in this world, would be on a ship to Brazil by morning, sold to the coffee plantations, where children died within a year. What happened behind that door 9 months ago was supposed to stay secret forever. But secrets don't stay buried when they're born with skin the color of midnight and eyes that ask questions no one wants to answer. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story will break your heart, challenge everything you believe about survival, and show you that sometimes the most dangerous thing a woman can do is give birth to the truth. The August heat clung to Hopewell Plantation like a second skin, even as the sun dipped below the Jamaican hills and the wedding guests raised their crystal glasses one final time. Rosemarie moved through the celebration like a ghost, refilling champagne, clearing plates, keeping her eyes down as she'd been taught since childhood. The great house glowed with candlelight, and the Anglican priest, freshly arrived from England, blessed the union between Lady Charlotte Pemberton and Captain William Ashford with words about duty, obedience, and the sanctity of Christian marriage. Rosemarie had been Charlotte's lady's maid for 6 months, ever since the young Englishwoman arrived at Hopewell with 17 trunks, a collection of poetry books, and eyes that startled like a deer's at every loud sound. Charlotte had chosen Rosemarie specifically from the house slaves, saying she had a gentle countenance and wouldn't be bothersome. What Charlotte meant, Rosemarie understood, was that she wanted someone who wouldn't ask questions about why the mistress woke screaming 3 nights out of 7, or why she flinched whenever a man stood too close. Rosemarie knew about trauma, even if she didn't have a fancy word for it. She'd been born at Hopewell 19 years ago to a woman named Miriam, who sang while she worked and taught Rosemarie to read using a water-damaged Bible. That Bible had belonged to Samuel, a freed black sailor who'd worked briefly on the docks in Kingston. Samuel had kind eyes and patient hands, and he'd spent 3 months teaching a small group of enslaved children their letters in secret, until the overseer found out. They'd whipped Samuel until the flesh hung from his back, then put him on a ship with a warning never to return to Jamaica. 2 weeks later, Miriam was sold to a sugar estate in Trelawney Parish. Rosemarie never saw her mother again. All she had left was Jacob, bright-eyed Jacob, who worked in the stables and dreamed of ships and freedom, who saved half his meager rations to share with her, who still believed that someday, somehow, things would get better. The 1833 Emancipation Act had passed in England. Everyone whispered about it, but it wouldn't take effect until 1834, and even then, there would be 6 years of apprenticeship, just slavery by another name. Rosemarie had stopped believing in rescue. She believed in survival. She believed in protecting Jacob. She believed in keeping her head down and enduring. But now, as the last wedding guests stumbled out to their carriages and Captain Ashford's laughter boomed through the halls, Rosemarie was being asked to endure something she had no words for. "Come," Charlotte whispered, grabbing Rosemarie's wrist and pulling her toward the private chambers. "Quick, hey, before William comes upstairs." The bride's room was a confection of white lace and imported silk, smelling of lavender and fear. Charlotte locked the door and pressed her back against it, her chest heaving beneath the elaborate wedding gown. "Mistress," Rosemary kept her voice soft, uncertain. "Are you unwell? Shall I fetch the physician?" "No." Charlotte's laugh was brittle, close to breaking. "No physician can cure what I... Rosemary, I need you to understand something. I cannot do this. I cannot lie with him." Rosemary stood frozen. This was not a conversation a slave should hear. This was dangerous territory. Charlotte seemed to read her thoughts because she pushed away from the door and grasped both of Rosemary's hands. Her palms were cold and damp. "When I was 14, something happened. In London. My father had a business associate and he..." She trailed off, her face crumbling. "I cannot bear a man's touch. Do you understand? I cannot." Understanding crashed over Rosemary like cold water. "Mistress Charlotte, perhaps if you explain to Captain Ashford." "Explain?" Charlotte's grip tightened painfully. "And watch my father's political career collapse when William demands an annulment? Watch my mother die of shame? I would rather die myself." "Then what?" Rosemary started, but she already knew. She'd known from the moment Charlotte pulled her into this room. She just couldn't let herself believe it. Charlotte released her hands and moved to the wardrobe, pulling out a white nightgown identical to the one she wore. "There's a tradition here, in the Caribbean. I've heard the other planters' wives speak of it at tea. On the wedding night, the bride, she demonstrates her generosity by gifting her husband a young woman from her household staff, a virgin, to prove his virility and her grace." "That's not tradition," Rosemary whispered. "That's evil." "Perhaps, but it's also a solution. You will go to him tonight. The room will be dark. He'll think you're me. He's drunk enough. And in the morning, we'll have blood-stained sheets and everyone will be satisfied." "No!" The word came out stronger than Rosemary intended. "No, Mistress Charlotte, please. I'm begging you. Don't ask this of me." Charlotte's face transformed. The desperate, pleading girl vanished, replaced by something colder. "I'm not asking, Rosemary. I'm telling you. You will do this, or I will have your brother sold to the Brazilian traders by morning." The world tilted. "Jacob?" "Sweet little Jacob," Charlotte said, and there was something genuinely apologetic in her tone, which somehow made it worse. 12 years old. Do you know what they do to children in the Brazilian coffee plantations? They work them 18 hours a day. The mortality rate is..." "Stop!" Rosemary's voice broke. "Please stop." "Then you understand. Put on the nightgown." Rosemary's hands moved like they belonged to someone else, undoing the buttons of her simple dress, letting it pool at her feet. Charlotte helped her into the white nightgown, and Rosemary noticed her hands were shaking too. "I'm sorry," Charlotte whispered, as she arranged Rosemary's black curls to spill across the pillows. "I truly am, but I cannot be the one to break. I've already broken once, and I cannot survive it again." Before Rosemary could respond, heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Captain William Ashford's voice, rich and warm with drink, called out, "Charlotte, my love! The guests have departed. It's time." Charlotte blew out 3 of the 4 candles, leaving the room in near darkness. "Get in the bed. On your side, facing away. Don't speak. Don't turn around. And Rosemary?" She paused at the door. "If you tell him the truth, if you say one word about this, I will destroy you and everyone you love. Do you understand?" Rosemary understood. She climbed into the massive 4-poster bed, her entire body rigid with terror, and faced the wall. The door opened. Rosemary heard it close again, heard the lock turn. Captain William Ashford's boots hit the floor one by one, and then the bed dipped under his weight. "Nervous, my dear." His voice was gentle, almost kind. "All brides are, I'm told, but I promise to be patient with you." Rosemary squeezed her eyes shut and bit down on the linen pillowcase. She thought of Jacob's smile. She thought of survival. She thought of all the ways a soul could leave a body while the body remained behind. William's hand touched her shoulder, and she flinched despite herself. "Easy," he murmured. "We have all night. There's no need to rush." But then his hand stilled. Rosemary felt him pause, felt his fingers trace the place where her nightgown had slipped, revealing her shoulder. "Charlotte?" His voice changed, confusion creeping in. "Your skin, it's so warm. Almost—" He stopped. In the silence that followed, Rosemary heard her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. Slowly, deliberately, William reached for the single remaining candle on the nightstand. The flame sputtered to life, casting golden light across the bed. "Turn over," he said quietly. Rosemary didn't move. "I said, turn over." No gentleness now. Command. She turned, and their eyes met. Even in the dim light, there was no mistaking what he saw. Deep, ebony skin, dark eyes wide with terror, and the unmistakable truth that the woman in his marriage bed was not his wife. William jerked backward as if burned. "You're Rosemary, Charlotte's maid." She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Where is my wife?" He was off the bed now, pulling on his shirt with shaking hands. "Where is Charlotte?" The words tumbled out before Rosemary could stop them. "She couldn't do it, Master William. She was terrified. She said it was tradition, that she was giving me as a gift. But please, I didn't want this. She threatened to sell my brother to Brazil if I refused. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." William's face cycled through shock, understanding, and then something darker. Humiliation. He'd been made a fool on his wedding night. He'd nearly... with a slave girl? The social implications crashed over him like a wave. "Get out," he whispered. "Master William." "Get out." The roar brought Charlotte running. She burst through the door in her nightgown, her face pale. "William, I can explain." "Explain?" His voice was deadly quiet now. "Explain how I found your slave in our bed? Explain how you thought to deceive me?" Charlotte's composure cracked. "I couldn't do it. You don't understand what was done to me, what I survived. I thought if you didn't know, if you just sacrificed an innocent girl to spare yourself discomfort, that's what you thought?" "She's not innocent." Charlotte's voice rose, desperate. "She's a slave. This is what they're for. This is what everyone does here." "That's not true," Rosemary said quietly, and both of them turned to stare at her. "That's not what everyone does. That's what cruel people do. That's what people do when they value their own comfort more than someone else's soul." Charlotte's hand cracked across Rosemary's face. "How dare you speak to me that way?" "Enough." William stepped between them, and Rosemary saw him make a decision. His shoulders straightened. His voice became the voice of a captain used to giving orders. "Rosemary, return to your quarters. We will not speak of this again. Charlotte, you and I will consummate this marriage tonight, or I will seek an annulment in the morning. You have 5 minutes to decide which future you prefer." Charlotte's face went white, but she nodded. And Rosemary, dismissed like a servant who'd witnessed an embarrassing family argument, gathered her dress and fled. She ran through the dark house, down the servants' stairs, across the yard, to the small cabin she shared with 3 other women. Inside, she collapsed on her straw mattress and wept until her throat was raw, not because of what had almost happened, but because of what had. She'd been offered up like a sacrifice, and when she was saved by chance rather than mercy, no one had apologized. No one had promised it wouldn't happen again. They'd simply sent her away to forget. But Rosemarie would not forget, and 9 months later, neither would anyone else. The first sign came 3 months after the wedding. Rosemarie woke one morning with nausea so violent she barely made it outside before retching in the bushes. Old Dinah, the plantation midwife who delivered half the children at Hopewell, took one look at her and knew. "How far gone are you, child?" Rosemarie's hands went protectively to her stomach. "I don't understand. Nothing happened. We didn't. But even as she said it, memory surfaced like a body rising from deep water. That night, the darkness, William's hand on her shoulder, and before he'd lit the candle, before he'd seen her face, there had been a moment, brief, confused, accidental, when his body had pressed against hers, when in the darkness and the wine and the expectation of a wedding night, nature had begun what consciousness would have stopped. "Oh, God!" Rosemarie whispered. "Oh, God! Oh, God!" "Hush now!" Dinah pulled her into the cabin. "Who's the father? The truth, girl." "Captain Ashford!" The words came out flat, dead. "But he doesn't know. He thinks nothing happened. It was dark, and it was only a moment before he lit the candle and saw me. But it was enough." Dinah's face went gray. "Child, do you understand what this means?" Rosemarie understood. She understood that in 6 months she would give birth to a baby who might have skin like hers or might have skin that raised questions. She understood that if Lady Charlotte discovered this pregnancy, she'd have Rosemarie sold before the week was out. She understood that her life, already balanced on a knife's edge, had just gotten infinitely more precarious. "Can you hide it?" Dinah asked. "Keep the mistress from knowing until the baby comes?" "And then what? A baby doesn't stay hidden." "One problem at a time, girl. One problem at a time." So Rosemarie hid it. She wore loose dresses, bound her growing belly, moved carefully to avoid notice. Lady Charlotte, absorbed in her new role as plantation mistress and increasingly dependent on laudanum to sleep through her nightmares, barely looked at her servants anyway. Captain Ashford spent most of his time in Kingston on business, and when he was home, he avoided Rosemarie's eyes with guilty determination. The baby grew inside her like a secret that would not keep. Rosemarie worked through her pregnancy, carrying water, tending chickens, serving dinner, all while life bloomed beneath her heart. She felt the first kicks in month 5, a flutter like bird wings. By month 7, the child was rolling and stretching, and Rosemarie would lie awake at night with her hands on her belly, whispering promises she wasn't sure she could keep. "I'll protect you," she'd say, "whatever it takes. Whatever color you are, whatever trouble you bring me, I'll love you. You hear me, little one? You're already loved." The labor began on a Tuesday morning in April. 9 months and 2 weeks after that terrible wedding night. Rosemarie's water broke while she was hanging laundry, and the contractions started so fast she barely made it to Dinah's cabin before her legs gave out. "Get everyone out," Dinah ordered the other women. "This birth stays private until we see what we're dealing with." 18 hours. That's how long Rosemarie labored, gripping Dinah's hands, biting down on a leather strap to keep from screaming. The pain was beyond anything she'd imagined, great tearing waves that made her understand why women called it labor. This was work, the hardest work of her life. "Push," Dinah commanded. "One more, girl. Give me one more." Rosemarie pushed with everything she had left, and then a cry. High and strong and perfect, the sound of life. "It's a boy," Dinah whispered, but her voice was strange, careful. "Let me see him." Rosemarie reached out with shaking arms. "Give him to me."
Dinah placed the baby on Rosemarie's chest, and time stopped. The child was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a cap of dark curls. And his skin was the deep mahogany of his mother's. Unmistakable, undeniable, beautiful. "Oh," Rosemarie breathed. "Oh, my love, my beautiful boy." "Rosemarie," Dinah said carefully, "do you understand what this means? Captain Ashford has brown eyes, light brown. Lady Charlotte has blue eyes, but this child—" "This child is mine," Rosemarie said fiercely. "Mine. And yes, his father is white, but look at him, Dinah. He's black. He's beautiful. And he's proof. Proof of what? Proof that I'm telling the truth. Proof of what they did to me." The baby began to root at her breast, and Rosemarie helped him latch. The pull of his mouth sent a cascade of unfamiliar feelings through her body. Love, yes, but also power. For 19 years, she'd been powerless, a body to be used and discarded. But this child, this perfect son, he made her something else. A mother. And mothers fight.
Rosemarie kept the baby hidden for 3 days in Dinah's cabin, recovering from the birth and nursing her son. She named him Samuel, after the sailor who'd taught her to read, after kindness and hope. But she knew the hiding couldn't last. Babies cry, people notice. On the 4th day, Lady Charlotte came looking for her. "Rosemarie," Charlotte's voice echoed across the yard. "Where is that girl? I need my hair dressed for the magistrate's dinner tonight." Dinah stepped out of the cabin, blocking the door. "Mistress Charlotte, Rosemarie has been unwell. Female troubles. She needs rest." "Female troubles?" Charlotte's eyes narrowed. She pushed past Dinah into the dim cabin and stopped dead. Rosemarie sat on the cot, baby Samuel at her breast. In the shaft of sunlight from the door, there was no hiding what she held. Charlotte's face went through the same progression William's had 9 months ago. Confusion, recognition, horror. When did you—" "9 months ago," Rosemarie said quietly. "The wedding night." "But William said nothing happened. He swore to me that he stopped when he saw you, that nothing—" Charlotte's voice rose to a shriek. "You're lying. You must have been with someone else, the stable boy, or—"
"I've never been with anyone else," Rosemarie interrupted. Her voice was calm, steady, powerful in a way it had never been before. "There was only that one night, Mistress Charlotte, the night you forced me into your marriage bed. And before Captain Ashford lit the candle, in the darkness, for perhaps 60 seconds, it was enough." Charlotte staggered backward. No, this is impossible. William would have told me." "Would he?" Rosemarie shifted the baby to her shoulder, patting his back gently. "Would he have told you that he violated a slave girl, even by accident? That he couldn't tell the difference between his wife and a woman with skin like mine? Would that have been a comfortable dinner conversation?" The color drained from Charlotte's face. "He doesn't know about the baby." "Not yet." "You have to get rid of it." Charlotte's desperation was palpable. "I'll pay for it. I'll send you to Kingston. There are women there who can help you get rid of—" "His name is Samuel," Rosemarie said coldly, "and I'm not getting rid of my son." "Then I'll sell you, both of you, to the furthest plantation in Jamaica, where no one will ever—" "And what will you tell your husband?" Rosemarie stood, cradling Samuel against her chest. "What will you say when his child disappears? Because make no mistake, Mistress Charlotte, this is his child. Anyone with eyes can see it." Charlotte looked at the baby properly for the first time, and the truth hit her like a physical blow. The shape of the nose, the set of the eyes, the way the infant's brow furrowed, even through the dark skin.
William's features were unmistakable to someone who knew him. "This will destroy everything," Charlotte whispered. "Yes," Rosemarie agreed. "It will."
The confrontation brought Captain William at a run. He burst into the cabin still in his riding clothes, having been summoned by a house slave Charlotte sent running. "What's all this noise about?" He saw Rosemarie. He saw the baby, and he froze. "William," Charlotte said, her voice shaking, "tell me this isn't what I think it is." William's face had gone ashen. He moved closer, studying the infant with the intensity of a man looking for something he desperately hoped not to find. Samuel yawned and stretched, his tiny fist opening and closing, and William saw it. The small birthmark on the baby's left wrist, shaped like a crescent moon. The same birthmark William carried, the same one his father had carried. "Dear God," William breathed. "Nothing happened," Charlotte said. "You told me nothing happened that night." "I thought," William's voice cracked, "it was dark. It was only a moment before I realized. I swear to you, Charlotte, I thought I'd stopped in time."
Apparently not. Charlotte's control shattered completely. She turned on Rosemarie with wild eyes. "You did this on purpose. You seduced Kim. I was there because you put me there." Rosemarie's shout silenced them both. Samuel startled and began to cry, and she rocked him automatically, her voice dropping back to something calmer but no less intense. "I didn't want this. I begged you not to make me go into that room. But you threatened Jacob, and I had no choice. None of this is my fault. All of this, every single bit of it, is yours." The truth of it hung in the air like smoke. William sank onto a wooden stool, his head in his hands. "What have I done?" "The question," Rosemarie said, "is what will you do now?"
The three of them, slave, mistress, and master, sat in Dinah's cabin while the afternoon sun slanted through the cracks in the walls. Samuel had fallen back asleep in Rosemarie's arms, blissfully unaware that his existence had just detonated 3 lives. "We have to be practical," Charlotte finally said, regaining some composure. "We need to control the situation before it controls us." "Control?" Rosemarie's laugh was hollow. "How do you control a baby?" "We tell everyone the father is a field worker, a man who's already been sold away. No one will question it." "They'll question it," William said quietly, "when they see the birthmark, when they notice his features. My mother lives in Kingston, and she visits twice a year. Do you think she won't recognize her own grandson?" "Then we sell them both," Charlotte's voice rose again. "Before your mother's next visit, we send them somewhere far—" "No!" William's voice cut through like a blade. "We're not selling them."
Both women stared at him. "William," Charlotte said carefully, "you cannot possibly mean to keep them here. The scandal—" "I know about scandal," William interrupted. "I know about reputation and social standing. But I also know that this child," his voice broke slightly, "this child is my son, my blood, and I will not compound the sins I've already committed by selling him like chattel." "Then what do you suggest?" Charlotte demanded. William stood and began pacing the small cabin. "Emancipation becomes law in August, just a few months away. I could free them both then, give Rosemarie a cottage on the edge of the property, a stipend, acknowledge the boy privately but not publicly." "That's your solution?" Rosemarie spoke for the first time in several minutes. "Keep us close enough to ease your guilt, but far enough to preserve your reputation." "What else would you have me do?" William turned to face her, and for the first time she saw genuine anguish in his face. "If I publicly acknowledge him as my son, society will crucify all of us. You'd be labeled a seductress. Charlotte would be pitied and scorned. And the boy would belong nowhere.
accepted by neither black nor white society. Is that what you want for him?"
Rosemary looked down at Samuel's sleeping face. She thought about the world he'd been born into, a world where his father's blood gave him no privilege, only danger, where being mixed made you perpetually suspect, never quite belonging anywhere. "I want him free," she said finally. "Not in August, when it's convenient for the Empire. Now, I want legal papers declaring him a free person, and I want the same for Jacob." "Rosemary," William started. "Those are my terms," she continued, her voice steady. "You free us, me, Samuel, and Jacob. You provide us a house and enough money to live independently, and you give Samuel your name, legally, even if you never speak it aloud. I want him to have the protection of your acknowledgement, even if it's hidden in legal documents that won't be opened unless something happens to him." "You're asking me to claim a black child as my legitimate son," William said slowly. "I'm asking you to tell the truth." Rosemary met his eyes, just once, on paper, where it matters, where it might save his life someday if someone tries to re-enslave him after emancipation. "You know how these things work, Captain Ashford. You know that freedom without documentation is just another kind of slavery."
William turned to Charlotte, who sat rigid with rage and fear. "This is your fault," she hissed at him. "Your weakness, your inability to control yourself even for 60 seconds. "Yes," William agreed quietly. "It is. And now I'm trying to make it right." "Right?" Charlotte's laugh was bitter. "There's no making this right. There's only choosing which disaster you prefer to live with." In the end, that's what it came down to. Choice. The luxury of choice, which Rosemary had never possessed until her son's existence forced everyone's hand. William arranged everything with surprising efficiency. He contacted a solicitor in Kingston, known for discretion, had papers drawn up declaring Rosemary and Jacob free persons, and in the private acknowledgement section, visible only if the documents were unsealed by legal authority, he claimed Samuel as his natural son. He purchased a small house on the far edge of the Hopewell property, near the main road, and arranged a monthly stipend that would allow Rosemary to live independently. "You'll need to leave within the week," William told her when he brought the papers. She's not well. The stress of this situation has exacerbated her nerves. If you stay, I fear what might happen." Rosemary looked at the freedom papers in her hands. Her name, Jacob's name, and Samuel's, all there in black ink on heavy paper. Legal, binding, real. "What about you?" she asked quietly. "What will you tell people?" "The truth," William said, "or at least a version of it. I'll say that I've freed you as a reward for loyal service and that you're going to live independently as a freed woman with your son and brother. Some will suspect, some will whisper, but without confirmation, the gossip will die eventually." "And Lady Charlotte?" William's face darkened. "Charlotte has made her choices, as have I. We'll live with the consequences." The day Rosemary left Hopewell, she did something unexpected. She gathered every enslaved person on the plantation, field workers, house slaves, skilled craftsmen, everyone, in front of the great house. Jacob stood beside her, holding baby Samuel, both of them free. "I want you all to know something," Rosemary said, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "This baby is Captain Ashford's son. Everyone here knows what happened 9 months ago. You know the truth, even if the white folks pretend not to." A murmur ran through the crowd. Lady Charlotte watched from an upstairs window, her face twisted with fury. I'm telling you this because I want you to remember that their power is not absolute, that even in their great houses with their imported furniture and their fancy manners, they are just people, flawed people, people who make mistakes they can't unmake. She turned to face the great house, and William stood on the veranda, frozen. But I also want to say this. Captain Ashford has made a choice. He's chosen to free us, to give my son legal protection, to try, in his imperfect way, to do better. It's not enough. It will never be enough to undo the harm, but it's more than many would do.
Then Rose Marie did something that would be talked about for years. She knelt on the ground and she placed baby Samuel on the grass in front of her. The child lay on his back, his dark limbs moving in the sunshine, and Rose Marie said, "This is Samuel Ashford, son of Rose Marie Ashford, free from birth. And someday when he's old enough to understand, I'll tell him that he was born from violence and fear, but he grew up in freedom and truth." One by one, the enslaved workers knelt, not to the master, not in submission, but in witness. They knelt to bear testimony to the truth, to the child who represented both the horror of their system and the possibility of its end. William descended the steps slowly. He crossed the yard, and he knelt too, not as a master, not with authority, but as a father, acknowledging his son in the only way left to him, on his knees, in the dirt, in front of everyone. Charlotte watched from the window, tears streaming down her face, understanding that she had set this entire catastrophe in motion with 6 words 9 months ago. "You are my wedding gift to him." If this moment gave you chills, write justice in the comments. The story of Samuel Ashford became legend. As he grew, the resemblance to his father became even more pronounced, and while society's whispers never fully stopped, the truth of his legal status, his freedom, his protection under his father's name, shielded him from the worst abuses. Rose Marie raised him to be proud, to be educated, to understand both the darkness of his origins and the light of his survival. She taught him to read using the same water-damaged Bible that Samuel the sailor had left behind. She taught him about his heritage, about resistance, about the fact that his existence was itself a rebellion against a system that tried to pretend people like him were invisible. Jacob grew into a fine man, became a carpenter after emancipation, and built houses throughout St. Andrew Parish. He never forgot that his sister's sacrifice had saved his life. Captain William Ashford remained married to Charlotte until her death from laudanum overdose in 1840. After her death, William never remarried. He manumitted all the enslaved workers at Hopewell 2 years before emancipation became law, and he spent the rest of his life in what could only be described as repentance, using his wealth to fund schools for freed black children, advocating for fair treatment of former slaves during the apprenticeship period, and leaving his entire estate, when he died in 1856, to his legal heir, Samuel Ashford. Samuel Ashford became one of the wealthiest black landowners in Jamaica, an activist for equal rights, and a father to 6 children who never knew slavery. He kept Rose Marie with him until her death at 67, surrounded by grandchildren, in a house she owned, on land she chose. The tradition that Charlotte had invoked, the bride's gift of a slave on the wedding night, was never spoken of again at Hopewell. But neither was it forgotten, because Samuel's existence proved that some truths refuse to be buried. Some children grow up to become testimony. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a mother can do is survive long enough to tell her son's story herself. Rose Marie lived to see emancipation. She lived to see her son inherit his father's estate.
She lived to see her grandchildren grow up free, educated, powerful. And when she died, the entire community came to her funeral, black and white, rich and poor, because everyone understood that Rose Marie had done something extraordinary. She had refused to disappear. She had refused to let them make her sacrifice invisible. She had given birth to truth itself, and she had raised that truth to be undeniable. Who was the real villain in this story? Lady Charlotte, who forced Rose Marie into that room? Captain William, who failed to protect her? Or the entire system that made such horror possible? Answer in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed the story.